A very good afternoon, everyone. I hope I am audible. All right. Okay. So today we'll begin our class with the three very interesting topics that I shortlisted for this particular week. So we are going to begin our current affairs class today with a discussion on the topic that is about the identification of the minorities. All right, identification of minorities in the country, because there is a there is you can say a plea that was there in the Supreme Court regarding the identification of the minorities, who can go for identifying the minorities in our country. So we'll take up the first topic related to identification of minorities. After that, we are going to discuss on the second topic, and the second topic basically deals with with the there is a report that is about India's space economy, and the third topic that we are going to discuss for the day, it is the Sagarmala project. All right, so let's begin the class today. The first topic that we want to discuss is related to, can minorities be identified at state level? All right, right now what it has been seen that as per the National Minority Commission Act 1992 or National Commission for Minorities Act 1992, it is the union government which goes for identifying the minorities in our country. All right, and this National Commission for Minorities Act 1992 has to be read along with the entry 20 into the concurrent list. Okay, so the question emerged that if we look at the state-wise data, there are many states where even the majority of India's population, which is the Hindus, even they are somewhere not majority, right? There are states like Jammu and Kashmir, so now Jammu and Kashmir is the UT. There are states like Manipur, there are states like Punjab, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh. In such states, Hindus are not majority. So should the constitutional and the government's provisions for the welfare of minorities, should they be extended to such a majority community which is a minority in such states? This is the question that we have to discuss in the first topic. So the first topic we are going to discuss, it is about the question that can minorities be identified at the state level? Well, as I told you that there is a petition which is the reason that this current affair is in news. So let me tell you in precise words the context of this current affairs. Recently, the Supreme Court is carrying out a hearing on a petition whether the minorities are to be identified in our country by the union government, or whether the state also has the right to go for identification of the minorities. So the union government, the current government of India, they presented a affidavit to the Supreme Court about whether the state government can go for identification of minorities. Well, before going ahead, let me tell you this thing, that the PDF of this lecture, this handwritten PDF that you can see on your screens, this PDF is already shared on our Telegram channel. All right, so those of you who are members of our Telegram channel, you can download this PDF maybe at this point of time or maybe after the completion of the lecture. And those of you who are still not part of our Telegram channel, you can join Raj Malhotra IAS Telegram channel, and you can find this PDF there and you can download it from there. All right, and those of you who right now want to remain glued to your screens, you can watch our discussion here on your screen itself, and later on you can download the PDF, but the PDF is available there on the Telegram channel. So let's come back to our discussion. So the central government has recently put up a affidavit before the Supreme Court, and that affidavit has clearly mentioned, all right, that affidavit has clearly mentioned that even the state government has the power to declare any community as minority. Any community which fulfills the condition of being a minority, be it a religious minority or be it a linguistic minority, even the state government has the power to go for identification of such a community as minority, unlike the current practice where the union government is the one that goes for identification of minority pan India. This affidavit of the government of India, it has resulted into a plea, all right, that was filed in the year 2020, and that plea said that if you look at the census 2011 data, then Hindus, which are the majority in India. So if you go by the demographic statistics, Hindus are 80% of India's total population. 80% of India's total population are Hindus. So Hindus cannot be a national minority. Hindus are national majority. Then, but if you look at the census 2011 data, Hindus are found to be less in number in UTs and states like Lakshadweep, Mizoram, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Jammu and Kashmir, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur and Punjab. Therefore, the plea was that if Hindus are minority in such states and UTs, then the Hindus, they must be given the minority status and should be extended the constitutional protection that extend to minorities in India. That is, if Hindus, though being the national majority, if they are minority in particular state, then the benefits that are there for the minority communities, even they must be extended to Hindus in such states, even if Hindus are national majority. So the plea that was filed in the year 2020, it said that Hindus in the states and UTs of Lakshadweep, Mizoram, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Jammu and Kashmir, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur and Punjab, they must be given the protection and promotion as per the principle that was laid by the Supreme Court in the famous TMA Pai Foundation judgment of the year 2002. We are going to discuss a little in depth about what is this TMA Pai Foundation verdict of the Supreme Court later in the lecture, but in this particular foundation verdict, the TMA Pai Foundation verdict, the Supreme Court has identified that states should be the unit where you have to look into whether a community is a linguistic or religious minority, right? So Hindus, so the plea has put before the Supreme Court a request that the Hindus in the states where they are minority, they must be given all the constitutional protection and the government protection to the minorities as per the ruling of the Supreme Court in TMA Pai Foundation ruling 2002. Is everything clear? Pardon. Is everything clear till this point? I hope it's clear, right? All right, brilliant. So if you look at the past instance, the affidavit that has been put forth by the union government, it is nothing different. Why? Because if you look at the past instances, the states have gone for identifying the religious and linguistic minorities. For example, in the year 2016, Maharashtra government, it declared the Jew community as a religious minority exclusive to Maharashtra. In India, the Jews are not considered to be a religious minority pan-India. In India, there are only 6 religious minorities: Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains and Parsis. Alright. So these are the religious minorities in India, and apart from that, there is no religious minority in the country. But in 2016, Maharashtra government declared the Jew community as a minority in the state. It is not just pertaining to the religious minority, but even the state of Karnataka has gone for identifying the linguistic minorities in the state of Karnataka. So, if, for example, Karnataka has identified the linguistic minorities speaking Urdu, Telugu, Malayalam, Marathi, Tulu, Tamil, Lamani, Hindi, Konkani and Gujarati speaking communities as minorities. So what is the issue that is there? There is a debate that is going on before the Supreme Court whether the state government has the power to identify the minority or not, right? The thing is, this is not explicit. Yes, Two states have done this in the past. Maharashtra has identified in the year 2016 Jews as a minority. Karnataka has identified certain linguistic groups as minority, but the fact is that overall, is the states or do the states have the power to identify the minorities or not? And the Supreme Court ke samne, the Union government has put forth its affidavit that yes, the states are free to do that. So now there is a basis that the Union government has used to put this affidavit. What is that basis? The basis lies in some of the Supreme Court verdicts related to minority affairs. So now we are going to discuss, or we are going to understand as part of this lecture, some of the very important Supreme Court's verdicts related to minorities. And the first verdict that we are going to discuss is the year 2002 verdict, and that verdict is known as the TMA Pai Foundation case. Now in this particular case, that is the TMA Pai Foundation case, Supreme Court has explicitly given a verdict that for the purpose of Article 30 that deals with the freedom given to the religious and linguistic minorities to protect their religious institutions, to promote their to freely, you can say, establish and administer their religious educational institutions, this particular benefit has to be extended to the state-wise consideration. That is, in this particular judgment, TMA Pai Foundation case, all right, Navonil not required, all right, TMA Pai Foundation case, the Supreme Court said that for the protection extended to minorities under Article 30, the religious and linguistic minorities, they have to be looked through the lens of the state. If a particular minority, so let's talk about there is a union territory of Lakshadweep. Which community is majority in Lakshadweep? Can anyone tell me which community is majority in Lakshadweep? All right, let's take Muslim is the answer. All right, let's say Muslims are the majority in Lakshadweep. Now the protection extended to the religious and linguistic minority under Article 30 will not extend to Muslims in Lakshadweep according to TMA Pai case. Similarly, in Punjab, the linguistic protection ensured to the Punjabi linguistic minority in the country or the Sikh community in the country, it will not extend to Punjabi linguistic group in case of Punjab. Are you getting my point? In case of Punjab, Sikh will not be considered as minority and they will not be extended the benefits of Article 30. But yes, outside Punjab, let's say it's Rajasthan. In Rajasthan, the Sikh are the minority and therefore Article 30 benefits can be extended to the Sikh community in Rajasthan but not in Punjab. This is the verdict that the Supreme Court has given in case of TMA Pai Foundation case. That is, if you want to extend benefits under Article 30 to the religious and linguistic minorities, then they must be the minority in the state where they are extended the benefits. Alright? अफशा, मैं एक बार फिर एक्सप्लेन करता हूं. अगर किसी भी रिलीजियस या लिंग्विस्टिक माइनॉरिटी को आर्टिकल 30 के अंतर्गत कोई भी बेनिफिट लेना है तो वो जो कम्युनिटी है उसको उस स्टेट में माइनॉरिटी होनी चाहिए रिलीजियस एंड लिंग्विस्टिक. फॉर एग्जांपल, इन केस ऑफ पंजाब, the Punjabi linguistic minority or the Sikh religious minority cannot take the benefit of Article 30 because they are the majority in case of India. All right. Japjit, so the thing is, either the educational institution will be of Punjabi speaking community or the educational institution will be of Sikh speaking Sikh religious community. All right, it's so either it is a linguistic minority a linguistic minority educational institution, or it will be a religious minority educational institution. It has to be very clear, right? Okay, okay, fantastic. Is this clear to everyone? Is the verdict of the Supreme Court in TMA Pi case is clear? So what is the benefit extended under Article 30? Under Article 30, the benefit that is extended is that the religious and the linguistic minorities, they are free to establish and administer their own educational institutions. So this is one of the very benchmark case related to this particular dimension of minorities. The second case that I would like to bring your attention to, it is the DAV College versus the State of Punjab case 1971. In this case also, the Supreme Court has identified that the state must be the basis to determine whether a community is a minority, that is, whether a community is a religious or linguistic minority. But Sikh is minority community. See, Bhupinder, that is the, see Bhupinder Singh, I do agree. Sikh is a religious minority at the national level, right? But it is a majority at the state level of Punjab. That's why Supreme Court has extended this verdict in the TMA Pi case, that extending the benefits under Article 30 to Sikh community in Punjab is not justified, because in Punjab, because India is a federal structure of government. So the government in Punjab will automatically going to be elected from the majority community. Are you getting my point? Then what's the point in extending the benefit to a community which is already a dominant community? So the Supreme Court in TMA Pi case came out with a rationality that जिन state में कोई community अगर majority है तो वहाँ पे उनको minority benefit extend करने का sense नहीं है. इसलिए any benefit under Article 30 that is extended to any religious or linguistic minority, it must be a linguistic and religious minority in the state where they are taking the benefits. Is it clear, Bhupinder? Right? Okay, 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 good, 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 good. Yeah. So the second case that I want to bring your attention to is the DAV College versus the State of Punjab 1971 case. In this case, the Supreme Court again held and reaffirmed. No, Tejaswari, it is not NCBC that lists the state identified minorities. State identified minorities भी आपके नेशनल कमीशन फॉर माइनॉरिटीज के अंतर्गत आएंगी बाद में. अभी इस पर डिस्कस करेंगे. होल्ड ऑन. ओके. So in this case, DAV College versus the State of Punjab 1971, the Supreme Court again upheld that a unit to determine whether a community is a religious or linguistic is the state. That is, you have to see a community with respect to state whether it is a religious or linguistic minority. So in this particular case, the Supreme Court has upheld that Arya Samaj, which is a predominantly Hindu religious group, it is a religious minority in Punjab, even if it is not true in case of entire country. In case of entire country, Arya Samaj, which is the Hindu religion, it is a majority. But in case of Punjab, in this particular case, the Supreme Court held that Arya Samaj is religious minority, and therefore Dayanand Anglo-Vedic, which are the educational institutions handled by Arya Samaj, they must be extended the benefits of Article 30. Are you getting my point? All right. Under Article 30, the benefits are extended to Arya Samaj in case of Punjab to run their Dayanand Anglo-Vedic Educational Trust and Farm. Next important judgment that I want your attention to focus upon is the Bal Patil case of the year 2005. In the Bal Patil case, again the Supreme Court reaffirmed its stand that the unit for determining any minority, be it a religious or linguistic minority, is again the state. I am reiterating what I just reiterated in the DAV versus the State of Punjab case. Now, if you look at the current affidavit filed from the union government that the states can notify any such community as minority, this is nothing but the replication of the various Supreme Court judgments in different cases. If you look at earlier stance before filing of this affidavit, earlier it was the states were not entitled to identify the minorities, and it was center who used to go for identification of minorities under section 2F of the National Commission for Minorities Educational Institution Act 2004. So before filing of this affidavit, it was a gray area as whether the states are entitled to identify or not, even if the Supreme Court has identified that the state is the unit through which you must consider a particular community to be minority or majority. It was a gray area, and now a lot of clarity will come, because till date the union government had the power to identify any group to be a linguistic or religious minority under section 2F of the National Commission for Minority Education Institution Act 2004. So let's wait for this verdict to get a lot of clarity as whether the states have the explicit right to declare a minority to be a religious or linguistic minority or not in their state and extend the benefits. Is this clear, this debate clear to everyone till this point, so that we can understand the concept of who the minorities are? All right, okay, good. So let's now go ahead and discuss what do you mean by the term minorities. So the question is, who are the minorities? All right. अक्षय, आपका डाउट अब यहाँ पे क्लियर हो जाएगा. What is difference between minority and majority? If you look at previous year prelims question paper, many times UPSC has asked this question: which of the following articles of the Constitution defines the minority? Option A, option B, option C, and option D used to be none of the above. And the answer was always none of the above. Why? Because if you try to identify the minorities, the first and the foremost thing that you must learn as a student who is fighting for the civil services examination, that minorities are nowhere explicitly defined anywhere in the Constitution. Nowhere the Constitution defines the word minority. All right. Now O'Neill, you can skip it. It's an information worth reading, but you may not be able to recall that section 2F of this act. It's fine. It's fine. If you can remember, it's always good. If you can't remember, it's done. No problem. Okay. Okay. So the minorities, they are nowhere explicitly defined anywhere in the Constitution, but we have seen that over the period of time, we have been able to identify two types of minorities. The first are, Anupji, that is, see, Maharashtra and Karnataka, they were able to identify the religious and linguistic minorities by themselves because it's a gray area, and identification of minorities is part of the concurrent list. Entry 20, list 3 of article 246. That involves economic well-being and social planning of the state. It is a joint activity of both the union as well as the state, and state is entitled to declare a community to be minority, but it is not explicitly mentioned anywhere. So it's a gray area. So taking advantage of the gray area, in 2016 Maharashtra went with identifying Jews as the religious minority in the state, and Karnataka has identified certain linguistic groups as minority. But now a lot of clarity is going to come up after the Supreme Court verdict. All right, now coming about the types of minorities in India. So in India, we generally have two types of minorities. They are religious minorities and linguistic minorities. Now to answer the question that Afsha asked, what is difference between minority and majority? The only difference is the number of people in that particular community. For example, when I say at the national level, 80% of India's total population is Hindus. So that means that out of, let's say 100 crore, 80 crores are Hindus. So nowhere you can say that at the national level Hindus are the minority, because minority is determined in terms of the number of people in that group. So there are two types of minorities. Linguistic minority. So suppose in India the Punjabi speaking community is, let's say, 1.4%. 1.4% people speak Punjabi. Alright, let's say 90% people speak Hindi. So Hindi will be a majority linguistic group, Punjab will become a minority linguistic group. So it is the number of the people in a particular group that will determine whether the group is minority or majority. Okay, so there are two types of minorities. Religious minority, a religious group which is not the most populated group in the country, will be a religious minority. For example, 80% are Hindus, so Hindus is the majority group, and all other faith in India, they will be determined as religious minorities. Similarly, there are linguistic minorities, and these religious minorities, they are notified under section 2C of the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. And if you look at the minority communities in India, there are six minority communities in the country. The first minority is Muslim. The largest minority in the country is Muslims, with a total population of 4.2% according to the 2011 census. The second largest minority are the Christians, with 2.3% of India's total population. The third largest minority are the Sikh community, with 1.7% of India's total population. The fourth largest minority group in India is the Buddhist, with a total population of 0.7% of India's total population. The Jains, they are the fifth largest minorities in the country, with a total population share of 0.4%, and this is worth remembering for your prelims examination, that the Jain community was added under the list of minorities in the year 2014. And the last, or the sixth minority group in the country, or the smallest minority group in the country, are the Parsis or Zoroastrians, which account for the 0.06% or 0.006% of India's total population. Right? If you look at this list, these are the communities which are recognized as minorities at the national level. But when you try to extend the benefits of Article 29 and Article 30 to such religious minorities, they will be looked through the lens of the state. And now the debate has arisen whether the states can identify. In past, 2 states have done so. Now it will be an explicit picture whether the states can identify the communities or not. Now the question that should come to our mind next is, what are the constitutional provisions related to minority welfare in the country, or what are the constitutional provisions for minority welfare in India's constitution? The first and the prominent, you can say the provision that has been the constitutional provision for minority welfare is a fundamental right under Article 29. Under Article 29, protection has been extended to protect the interest of the minorities. Article 29 intends to protect the minority groups, particularly their language, script and culture. The religious and linguistic minorities, they are allowed to protect their distinct language, script and culture in the country under Article 29. And under Article 30, which is again a fundamental right, the religious institutions, they have been given the right to establish and administer their own educational institutions. All right, and it has been pointed out by the Supreme Court that as language has been the basis for the establishment of different states in India. You know that after setting up of the State Reorganization Commission, it was identified that language is to be the basis for formation of many new states in India, and particularly after 1950s, India has seen many new states coming on the basis of language. We have seen that the states are identified on the basis of language, and therefore the Supreme Court has observed, and there is a rationality in this argument, that the linguistic minority will have to be determined in relation to the state in which educational institution is sought to be established. Under Article 30, when you are trying to administer and establish your own educational institution, be it you are a religious minority or a linguistic minority, even the linguistic minority is to be determined on the basis of which state you are claiming the rights under Article 30. If you are a Malayali speaking population and you are trying to seek benefits in Kerala, that cannot be justified. Why? Because in India, particularly after independence and setting up of the State Reorganization Commission, many of the states have been carved out on the basis of language. So if a state which has a predominant language as a majority speaking language, that cannot claim that language to get benefits under Article 30, even if it is a linguistic minority at the national level, and it is a rational argument as well, right? Okay. And the same extension has been extended to the religious minorities as well. लियो, आपने एक हाइपोथेटिकल क्वेश्चन पूछा है, उसका आंसर यस है, बस ठीक है। अब वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होगा ना होगा वो एक अलग चीज है ना। ऐसा नहीं होता, दो कम्युनिटीज नहीं होती कि एक 51% है दूसरी 49% है, इतना क्लोज नहीं होता है। ऑलराइट, ओके, this is a hypothetical question, so your question to your so the answer to your question is just yes, and that conflict thing I'm negating because this is a hypothetical situation that you have arised. Now coming to another constitutional provision regarding the welfare of the minority, there is Article 350A of the Constitution of India, which exclusively aims at welfare of the linguistic minorities. Under Article 350A, for the linguistic minorities, the president has to appoint a special officer who is going to brief the president about what steps must be taken for the protection and promotion of the interest of such a linguistic minority. So Article 29 and Article 30 extends to both the religious minority as well as the linguistic minority, whereas Article 350A of the Constitution extends exclusively to the linguistic minority. That the the President of India under Article 350A is obliged to appoint a special linguistic officer that is going to apprise the president about what efforts must be undertaken for protection and promotion of the interest of such a linguistic minority. Is this question clear to everyone? See Pallavi, I am not saying constitution does not have the word minority. मैंने बोला कहीं पे define नहीं कर रखा है। क्या आर्टिकल 30 में definition दे रखा है minority का? क्या आर्टिकल 29 में डेफिनेशन दे रखा है माइनॉरिटी का? क्या आर्टिकल 350A में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में डेफिनेशन दे रखा है माइनॉरिटी का? डेफिनेशन कहीं नहीं है ना। ऑलराइट, मैंने ये थोड़ी लिखा कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कहीं पे शब्द नहीं लिखा है, लिखा है शब्द तो माइनॉरिटी, ऑलराइट, बट डिफाइन नहीं कर रखा है। ऑलराइट, नाउ द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन दैट विल कम अप, यूनियन। अभी गोपी जनरली यूनियन है, लेकिन अब इस वर्डिक्ट के बाद क्लियर हो जाएगा कि क्या स्टेट भी माइनॉरिटी स्टेटस डिक्लेयर कर सकती है। अभी तो यूनियन करती है ना, तभी तो भारत में सिर्फ 6 रिलीजियस माइनॉरिटीज हैं। अभी देखते हैं क्या होता है आगे, लेट्स सी, लेट द वर्डिक्ट कम। नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज, हम कई बार देखते हैं, हाँ यस दैट्स राइट गोपी, ठीक है, हम कई बार देखते हैं कि माइनॉरिटी, देयर इज अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इन इंडिया between Hindus and Muslims, where Hindus are the majority and Muslims are the minority. So the question that comes to our mind is that this Hindu-Muslim conflict, is this Hindu-Muslim conflict because Muslims are less in number or something else? I am asking you a general question, you can try to answer this question. The Hindu-Muslim conflict in India, is it because that the Muslims are less in number, or is it something else that is the reason between Hindu and Muslim conflict in India? Please try to answer this question. Is it just the number? Very good. The answer is no. It is not the number which is the reason for the conflict between the Hindus and Muslims. Had that been the reason, then the fight would have been between Hindus and Parsis, Hindus and Jain, Hindus and Buddhists, Hindus and Sikh, Hindus and Christians more aggressive than Hindus and Muslims. Are you getting my point? Less in number is not the reason between the majority and the minority conflict in India. Rather, it is something else. And what is it that is the reason for the conflict between majority and minority is development of minority consciousness. My dear friends, in India there is a conflict between two communities where one is majority and second is minority. It is not because minority is less in number, it is because in India, because of certain developments, the minority has developed what is known as the minority consciousness. What do you understand by minority consciousness? Minority consciousness का मतलब होता है जब, alright, जब एक माइनॉरिटी के अंदर ये एहसास डेवलप हो जाए कि जी मैं माइनॉरिटी हूं. आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? माइनॉरिटी कॉन्शियसनेस तब डेवलप होती है जब एक माइनॉरिटी के अंदर इनसिक्योरिटी डेवलप होती है बिकॉज ऑफ सर्टेन रीजंस, एंड द रीजन बिहाइंड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ माइनॉरिटी कॉन्शियसनेस इज द रिलेटिव डेप्रिवेशन. रिलेटिव डेप्रिवेशन. जैसे आप देखिए, इंडिया में जैन्स और हिंदूज के बीच में कोई फाइट नहीं है, डेस्पाइट दैट जैन्स आर जस्ट 0.4% ऑफ इंडियाज टोटल पॉपुलेशन. What is the reason? The reason is that the Jain, they are the affluent community, they are forward community, they are well to do, they are rich, they are not having any kind of minority consciousness. They are living in the country without any kind of insecurity or a sense of deprivation. Whereas in different parts of the country, different minorities, they develop a sense of deprivation because they are either politically weak, either they are socially backward, they are educationally backward, or because of the clash of interest. These things results into development of minority consciousness in a minority, and when the minority consciousness will develop, it is only then the minority and majority conflict is going to take place. For example, Muslims in India, they are, all right, I'm just trying to explain you this thing, right? Muslims in India, they are having this sense of minority consciousness in India. Why? Because they were the ruling elites during medieval time. All right, they were artisans, handicrafts having state patronage during medieval India. All right, today they are educationally backward, socially backward. All right, they are having high incidence of poverty. Are you getting my point? These things resulted into development of the minority consciousness, and this minority consciousness has triggered the conflict between majority and the largest minority. Whereas the other minorities, they are affluent, well to do, and they are not suffering from the sense of relative deprivation, and that is the reason that there is no conflict between the majority Hindu and other religious minority. But in different pockets of the country, the religious majority Hindus are coming in conflict with the largest minority, that is the Muslims. So it is just that in India, Muslims have developed what is known as minority consciousness. And to eliminate this communal tension that is building up, you have to remove this sense of insecurity and minority consciousness from the minorities in India. However, this is more of a topic that we cover in our sociology optional class, so I am not going to go much in deeper than this, but I wanted to give you an idea that in case of India, the conflict between majority and minority is not just the number, it is rather a sense of deprivation, particularly relative deprivation of a minority with respect to the majority. I hope it's clear to everyone, right? Because see, there's a question that I don't know the name. It has been asked the question that if the Muslims were rulers in medieval India, then what is the reason for their poverty or deprivation right now? When the British came and they overthrew the Mughal rule, they considered the Muslims elite in India as the potential threat to themselves, and they did not allow the Muslims to go for political, social and educational modernization. the British did not extend patronage to the artisans and handicrafts who were mostly belonging to the Muslim community. Are you getting my point? So the divide and rule policy of the British is one of the biggest reason for the relative deprivation that emerged among the Muslims. First, the British did not allow the British did not allow the Muslims to modernize. At the same time, sometime later, the British, through their divide and rule policy, developed the minority consciousness among the Muslims, and because of that thing we are still continuing with such kind of communal tensions. All right. So Afsha, the remedy is nothing but you have to eliminate this minority consciousness, prevent polarization, develop communal harmony, modernize, educate, and spread the socio-economic prosperity among the Muslim community in India. Only then you are going to see the minded consciousness coming down, otherwise things are just going to escalate. All right, chaliye, let's go ahead and let's have a slight or a small discussion about what are the steps of the government of India for minority welfare. The first step that the government, so not just the first step, but one of the very prominent step that the government has taken up for minority welfare in India is that the government of India has gone for creating a very separate you can say ministry for minority affairs. So the government of India, it created a separate ministry for minority affairs on 29th January 2006 by crafting this ministry of minority affairs from the existing ministry of social justice and empowerment. See Shrishti, I'll not go much into this debate because it's going to take us into some kind of emotional track, but what I told you right now is very much truth. All right, it is not just that the Muslims did not take up development. No, the initial development was not extended to the Muslims. Yes, ठीक है, मे बी देखो एक और, चलो आपने ये बात छेड़ी ना, तो मैं आपको एक चीज बताता हूँ, ठीक है. When India got partition, जितने भी elite Muslims थे, who could have been the light of spreading modernization among Indian Muslims, they moved to Pakistan and Bangladesh. And Indian Muslims fell victim to the ulemas and the orthodox teachers who were there in Muslim or Islam in India. Are you getting my point? I am not criticizing any ulema, I am not criticizing any religious preacher, it's perfectly fine. But then religion has to be separated from the secular dimensions of life. Are you getting my point? This is also one of the reasons that why did majority of Indian Muslims are still backward, because you know every community has a beacon of light that guides them in the darkness. All those beacons of light, the elite Muslims, the educated Muslim, they moved to Pakistan, leaving Indian Muslims falling prey to ulemas and those the spiritual leaders who were you can say preaching the orthodox version of Islam, which may not be rational. Every religion has a rational outlook that must be, you can say, spread and brought to light, right? And this is also one of the reasons that the literacy rates in the Indian Muslims, they are quite low, right? They are quite less in number. I know Gopi, you were there in sociology class, I know that you have this knowledge. All right, okay, theek hai, good. All right, I appreciate it. Let's go ahead now. So if we talk about the steps, take more absolutely Japjit, yes, ठीक है, esoteric and exoteric education, wonderful that you are still having the grip of these concepts. Wonderful, good. Let's come to the steps taken by the government once again. So the government has created a separate ministry and formed on 29 January 2006 a separate Ministry of Minority Affairs, which was carved out of the existing Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Not only that, the Union government has launched various schemes for the minorities in India, particularly among the minorities, that section which is underprivileged. For example, there is schemes like Nai Roshni. For example, there is an umbrella scheme for promotion of education among the boys and girls of minority institutions. All right, Article 29, Article 30, and the steps taken by the government in pursuit of Article 29, 30, Article 350A are some of the examples of the schemes for the underprivileged among the minorities. Not only that, under Article 246, the Parliament has enacted the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992, which has created a statutory body in the name of National Commission for Minorities, and that commission is taking all the steps required for protection and promotion of interest of the minorities in India. Not only that, even the Prime Minister has come out with a 15-point program for the welfare of minorities in India, and among these 15-point program, one of the very prominent you can say step taken by the Prime Minister's vision towards minority welfare is that the Prime Minister has linked any kind of lending by the banks to the minorities in the country to be considered as part of the PSL, or the priority sector lending. Under the priority sector lending, under the PSL, the banks are under mandatory obligation to extend a certain part of their liquid money to the minority groups, and when you are going to extend liquidity to the minority groups are going to invest that money and reap the benefits out of it, leading to their economic and consequent social upliftment. Is it clear? The steps taken by the government, you can write down n number of different schemes. I am not putting any name of a particular scheme, but you can fill in this gap. Article 246, which has made the Parliament enact the National Commission for Minorities as a statutory bodies under the same act in 1992. Not only that, the Prime Minister's 15-point program has a special provision for the economic welfare of the minorities, where the program has linked minority lending through the banks as part of their mandatory PSL. Is this clear to everyone? Right? Alright, so with this we come to the end of discussion of our first topic. Now we are going to discuss the second topic, and the second topic is about India's space economy. Alright, it's about India's space economy. Alright. Okay, so the reason that I am taking up this topic, the space economy, because whenever there is any news related to space development, UPSC has gone for asking questions either in the prelims or the mains examination, and therefore the recent finding by a research project that was combinedly carried out by CDS and IIST, उसकी जो findings हैं उसको discuss करना ज़रूरी है, because it's talking about a new emerging sector of India's economy which is known as space economy. So this particular research project that we are discussing right now in this session, this was carried out by CDS. CDS stands for Center for Developmental Studies, and IIST is Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, which is based in Thiruvananthapuram. These two groups, they have carried out a research project and they have commented about India's space economy. So we have to understand what is the research finding that has come to the fore. We have to understand what is space economy, what are the issues and challenges and future prospects of India's space economy. So let's go ahead. So this research has pointed out that if you look at the space economy in India, it has evolved to 0.23% of India's GDP in the year 2021-22. But before even appreciating this fact, we have to understand what do you understand by space economy. Space economy का मतलब है that in India there is expenditure by the government and the revenue being incurred by the government because the government is promoting the space to be used by private and public entities. Alright, in economy there are two things, expenditure and receipt, है ना, ये दो बड़े मेन प्रिंसिपल्स इकोनॉमी में, एक्सपेंडिचर है और रिसीट है. So the government is spending money to create a capital investment structure such that this capital investment structure will give back returns to the government of India. How it will do that? It has gone for setting up of global space industry in India. It involves, the space economy involves the manufacturing of the in-space items, manufacturing of satellites, manufacturing of launch vehicles, manufacturing of the propulsion engines. Not only that, satellite operations, satellite maneuvering. Not only that, lending the satellites to be used by different agencies for different purposes. All these things are going to generate revenues for the government. And this sector, along with the services from satellite operators and the consumer services offered by the space technology, all these combined together is known as space economy. You know that Indian Space Research Organization goes for launching PSLV, GSLV launch vehicles, and on those launch vehicles, satellites not just from India but from other countries of the world are also launched into the space. Do you think that Indian ISRO is going to do this just for the sake of fun? No. ISRO carries out these missions, help other countries to launch their satellites, and in return ISRO charge money from them. So it's a sector of economy. ISRO is providing space technology, it's space economy. Not only that, Indian government has launched a satellite, let's call it to be a telecommunication satellite. Now the different operators which are making use of that satellite, they are paying revenue to the government for the use of that satellite or the spectrum that is provided by that satellite. So my dear friends, that's again the part of space economy. Anything, any manufacturing expenditure receipt associated with the space and the utility of the space technology is known as space economy. And right now this field is growing in India, and it has been pointed out by this research that the space economy today is just 0.23% of India's net GDP. Lekin we should not dismiss that this is a very small figure. 0.23% of GDP is less than 1% of GDP. But my dear friends, we must appreciate the progress that we have made in this dimension, and this we can learn from this infographic. If you look at this infographic, the infographic is showing you the number of startups that started working in the field of space science, all right, in different years starting 2012 and the most recent 2021. In India, in the year 2012, there was only one startup that was started functioning in the space technology sector. In 2013-14, there were just one more new startups coming up in space sector. In 2015, 3 new startups emerged. In 2016, just one more new startup emerged. However, after 2016, this sector is seeing a tremendous growth and new startups have emerged in the field of space science, particularly after the government of India has started liberalizing the space sector, promoting public-private partnership in this dimension. All right, it has been seen that pardon me, it has been seen that in the year 2021, India witnessed some 47 new startups coming in the field of space science and space technology, which is just double the number of startups that started in the year 2020. In the year 2020, there were 21 new startups that emerged in the field of space science. But in the year 2021, 47 new startups emerged, a growth of more than 100%. So what does this infographic is trying to show you? The infographic is trying to show you that in India, the space science technology or the space economy is on the verge of witnessing the new growth. And the research by CDS and IAS has pointed out that in the year 2020-21 fiscal, the the size of the space economy in the country was worth $5 billion US. Now if you try to appreciate, there is a prelims question that can come from this research article, and that is, as a percentage of GDP, as a percentage of India's total GDP, the space economy has shown a steady growth. True or false? आपको एक स्टेटमेंट दे देंगे और पूछ लेंगे नीचे दी हुई स्टेटमेंट में से कौन सी स्टेटमेंट सही है. ए बी सी डी और कॉम्बिनेशन आपके ऑप्शंस में होंगे. उसमें एक स्टेटमेंट होगी, एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ जीडीपी, एज अ percentage of GDP, the space economy in India has shown a steady growth. और हमें लगेगा कि हाँ भाई बिल्कुल सच बात है, और हम उसको टिक करके आएंगे कि बस ये तो गलत हो ही नहीं सकता, और वहां पे आपका गलत हो जाएगा. Why? Because no matter in terms of the net amount of revenue generation, yes, there is a steady growth in India's GDP, space economy is GDP, but if we look at as a percentage of GDP, it has gone down in the year 2019-20 compared to 2011-12. In the year 2011-12, our size of GDP was less. At that time, the percentage of GDP that we were getting as a revenue from space economy was 0.26%. It decreased to 0.919% in the year 2019-20. But please do appreciate this fact: the size of India's GDP in 2019-20 is larger compared to 2011-12. So the space economy has shown a steady growth in terms of actual numbers, but in terms of the percentage of GDP, the size of the India's space economy has not shown a steady growth. This is a trap point where UPSC can catch hold of you, and you will be penalized if you agree with this statement that as a percentage of GDP, India's space economy has shown a steady growth. No, it has not shown a steady growth, because in 2011-12, the space economy was worth 0.26% of India's total GDP, which fell to 0.19% of India's total GDP in 2019-20, and in the year 2021-22, it did rise to 0.23%. All right, is this clear to everyone? All right, now another prelims related information. Among the space economy, which sector of India's space economy is giving the largest revenue to the government? So you must try to understand and appreciate the fact that in India's space economy, the largest contribution is coming from the space application. The usage, space application का मतलब है the usage of the space related items, be it the satellite, be it the launch vehicle, be it the facilities related to space science. All right, so space application is giving approximately 73.57% of the total revenue that the Indian economy is getting from its space economy. Space operations comes second at 22.31% of total contribution, and space related manufacturing comes at number 3 with just 4.12% of total contribution coming from space manufacturing. So the sector of space economy which is dominating in case of India is space application, followed by space operation, and lastly manufacturing, right? This arrangement can be asked in case of prelims. Grishmika, yes, it is indeed. Okay, now let's understand what is the issue with the growth of India's space economy. As a percentage of GDP in the year 2011-12, space economy was 0.26% of the total GDP, and in the year 2020-21, we have reached the figure of 0.23%. Why there is not so much of growth in India's space economy? Why is this growth sluggish? It is sluggish because of certain issues in expansion of India's space economy. What are these issues? Number one, the first issue is that the government is not giving adequate or significant amount of budgetary allocation for space economy or the space programs that can be remunerative for the government. जब आप इन्वेस्ट ही नहीं करोगे तो रिटर्न कहाँ से आएगा भाई? है ना, सिंपल सी बात है, राइट. So the first question that the first issue that comes is that the government's budgetary allocation for the space economy has gone down, which was 0.09% of the GDP was the government budgetary allocation for the space economy in the year 2000-2001. It decreased to 0.05% of India's total GDP in the year 2011-12, which has remained more or so 0.05% of India's total GDP in the year 2021-22. Again, ध्यान रखिए ये परसेंटेज ऑफ जीडीपी के हिसाब से है. In actuality, though it must have shown a steady increase, but as percentage of India's GDP, the investment or the expenditure by the government in the budget for space economy has gone down. It was 0.09% of India's total GDP was spent on space economy in the year 2000-2001, which has remained approximately 0.05% since 2011-12 up to 2021-22. So the budgetary allocation is very poor and has remained restricted as a percentage of GDP. All right. Not only that, ISRO, which is the primary organization that deals with, you can say, the space related revenue generation mechanism, it is short on scientific, infrastructural and technological achievements. There is not enough, there are constraints on ISRO in terms of scientific excellence, there are constraints in terms of infrastructure, and there are constraints in terms of technology. Not only that, ISRO has constantly pointed out that the manpower that the ISRO is receiving from the country, it is deficit, less in number, and not only that, the manpower that is recruited, they are technically deficit because the brain drain is taking place. स्वदेश का शाहरुख खान यहाँ से अपनी ग्रेजुएशन करके यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ पेंसिल्वेनिया चला जाता है और फिर वो वहाँ पे नासा के लिए काम करता है. ISRO के लिए कौन काम करेगा, है ना, है ना. जब तक वो वापस देश नहीं आता, उसका देश नहीं बुलाता, तब तक तो वही रहेगा और वो सिर्फ फिल्मों में होता है कि वो वापस आ जाए, नहीं तो उसने सीधा कहाँ निकल जाना है, अमेरिका निकल जाना है. Are you getting my point? So ISRO has pointed out the brain drain in India's space economy. There is manpower deficit and the manpower which is being received, it is technically deficit. फिर grow कैसे करोगे, है कि नहीं है, right? Absolutely. Now not only that, there is a foreign competition. फॉरेन कंपटीशन जबरदस्त आ रहा है. इंडिया का PSLV, पोलर सैटेलाइट लॉन्च व्हीकल, is known as the workhorse of ISRO, which has an impeccable delivery record of launching PSLV small to medium size satellites. और ISRO बहुत सारी कंट्रीज से पैसा वसूलता है छोटी से मीडियम सैटेलाइट लॉन्च करने के लिए यूजिंग PSLV. अब ISRO के पसीने छूट रहे हैं. क्यों ISRO के पसीने छूट रहे हैं? इसलिए छूट रहे हैं पसीने क्योंकि अपने इलॉन मस्क भाई साहब की जो स्पेस एक्स कंपनी है, उसका जो फाल्कन 9 लॉन्च व्हीकल है, इट इज ऑल्सो गिविंग tremendous amount of accuracy, precision, success rate for launching small to medium satellite. All right, are you getting my point? अब वहां से कंपटीशन आ गया तो इधर रेवेन्यू अपने आप कम हो जाएगा. और जैसे जपजीत ने बोला, एक पॉइंट आप और ऐड कर सकते हैं कि भारत में सरकार ने रियलाइज ही नहीं किया द पोटेंशियल ऑफ स्पेस सेक्टर. एब्सोल्युटली, the government did not realize the potential of space sector in the country, and because of that reason only the budgetary support for the space programs, particularly the space economy, has remained constrained in case of India. Are the issues clear to everyone? ठीक है? All right, because of these reasons we are seeing that India's space economy is not proliferating at the rate it should. Okay, good, fantastic. Let's now talk about the steps taken by the government. All right, the steps taken by the government for promotion and expansion of India's space economy. The first step that the government has taken is that the government has liberalized the satellite communication and remote sensing in India. Before 2000, the 2016, 17, 18, 19 से पहले in India anything related to space was completely in control of the government. But now the government has updated its policies related to satellite communication and remote sensing, and that has resulted into generation of new interest among the private players to come and invest in India's space economy, increase the size of India's space economy. This can be seen from liberalization of India's Spacecom and Space RS policies, such that with liberalization there is infusion of private interest into the space technology, and particularly in the space satellite communication and remote sensing sector. The private investment has gone up, and we are witnessing the proliferation of the new startups in these areas. Not only that, the government has created a nodal agency under the Department of Space, and that nodal agency is known as InSpace. InSpace is the nodal agency under the Department of Space named as Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. This InSpace, it is acting as a nodal agency where the private players can come and put forth their proposals related to space programs, and this facilitation of the private parties by the government attracting them to their space program, it has resulted into infusion of private interest in India's space economy, which can be seen from more than 40 proposals being submitted to InSpace in the last year related to various dimensions. And the most interesting fact is that many of these 40 proposals to InSpace have come from MSMEs, startups and academia. This is a very encouraging sign, because large companies, large industries can certainly go for putting themselves forth in स्पेस साइंस. हो सकता है कल जियो अपना एक रॉकेट लॉन्च कर दे, क्या बड़ी बात है, पैसा है चचा के पास तो वो कर देगा यूज. आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? इलॉन मस्क ने हवाई रॉकेट उड़ा दिया तो क्या बड़ी चीज करी. लेकिन अगर कोई एमएसएमई, एकेडमिया, इंस्टीट्यूशन या स्टार्टअप इन चीजों में इंटरेस्ट दिखा रहा है, इट इज अ वेरी एनकरेजिंग साइन. And thanks to this nodal agency InSpace, which is acting as a communication platform between the private entity and the government to promote PPP model in space technology. Not only that, these 40 proposals that have come before the InSpace, they are not just limited to one particular aspect of space science. It is covering both upstream project as well as downstream project. These 40 proposals deal with the upstream related issues such as launch of vehicle and satellite manufacturing, as well as downstream, you can say downstream services such as remote sensing, earth observation, application, communication, etc. So the 40 proposals that have come, that are spread across the entire space economy sector. That is, we are not receiving proposals only related to one dimension of space economy, but all the dimensions of space economy are now becoming the point of interest for the private players in India, and this is resulting into the growth of space science in India. Not only that, we have seen that the Prime Minister has launched the Prime Minister Gati Shakti National Master Plan. This Prime Minister's Gati Shakti National Master Plan, it intends to provide multimodal connectivity to various economic zones and integrate the infrastructure linkages for movement of people, goods and services, which is going to improve the logistics efficiency, and promote the space economy in India. Now there is a way forward that we must take notice of. The way forward is that the government has now realized the potential of space economy, and the government should go for increasing the budgetary allocation. Why? Because India is providing very cheap satellite launching services, very cheap space operations compared to other countries like US and Russia, France. India is providing cheap services, it has low operating cost, and the government must build upon it by increasing the budgetary allocation. Not only that, the way forward for proliferation and development of India's space economy is that the government must remove any kind of regulatory blockage to increase the foreign direct investment in the space sector. Not only that, the ISRO should completely privatize the services related to small satellites, come in PPP mode with for medium satellites, and may control larger satellites for itself. So the third point says ISRO must completely privatize manufacturing, operation, control of small satellites. It must come into PPP mode for medium and large satellites, but privatization is the key for the growth of space economy. So these are the way forward, and this is the entire discussion about India's space economy. Is this point clear to everyone? All right, is this topic clear? Okay, great. Now we are coming to the last topic for today, and the last topic that we are going to discuss in this session, it is related to the Sagarmala program, है ना. तो पूरा सागरमाला प्रोग्राम समझते हैं, क्या है सागरमाला प्रोग्राम, क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं, क्या इसका विजन है, ऑलराइट, क्यों लॉन्च हुआ था, क्या अभी तक इसकी परफॉर्मेंस है, ये सारे डायमेंशंस अब हम थर्ड टॉपिक के देखेंगे, विच इज़ आवर लास्ट टॉपिक फॉर टुडे, एंड दैट इज़ द सागरमाला प्रोग्राम. Why we are discussing the Sagarmala program despite the fact that this program was launched in the year 2015? The reason is very simple, that this particular week the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, it has celebrated 7 successful years of the Sagarmala program. The Sagarmala program has completed 7 successful years, and that feat is being commemorated by the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways. Let us now look into what is this Sagarmala project. The Sagarmala project was approved by the Union Cabinet in the year 2015. To be precise, it was 25th March 2015. So 25th March 2022 marks the 7 complete years of the Sagarmala project. So Sagarmala project was envisaged in the year 2015 as a flagship program of the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. This program intended to India, this particular program intended that India should have a port-led development in the country. What do you mean by port-led development? Port-led development means that in India, the development must be accrued from the ports. In India, the port capacity, the port economy was underutilized, and therefore, to translate India's economy into 5 trillion economy, you must use the ports to their full capacity. And for that, in the year 2015, the government launched the Sagarmala project so that India could go for a port-led development in the country. Why? Because India is blessed with 7,500 kilometers long coastline and approximately 14,500 kilometer long navigable waterways. And not only that, India has certain strategic locations. So we are bestowed with a very long coastline. We have many deep sea ports. We have 13 major ports which are underutilized. We have hundreds of minor ports which are underutilized. We have 14,500 kilometers of navigable waterways. All these things are underutilized, and we wanted to harness the benefit of such natural endowments to the tune of India's development. And therefore, this particular program, the Sagarmala program, had a vision, and the vision was that we intend, or the Sagarmala program intended to reduce the logistic cost of export-import trade as well as the domestic trade in the country such that we get the maximum return with a minimal infrastructure investment. Why? Because unlike roadways and railways, the infrastructure development in waterways is comparatively less. So waterways provide India reduction in the logistic cost in both export import as well as domestic trade with minimal infrastructure investment. This is the vision. You can see from this infographic that we intended to reduce the logistic cost with minimal infrastructure investment using Sagarmala project by reducing the cost of transporting domestic cargo through optimizing model mix. भैया जहां पे आप waterways यूज कर सकते हो वहां पे railways और roadways क्यों बना रहे हो? Are you getting my point? So what do you mean by the term optimizing model mix? The best model having the optimum use of roadways, railways and waterways. If you develop an optimizing model mix, then your transportation cost will automatically come down. Not only that, you must optimize the time cost of export import container movement, right? You need to have a very particular fine balance between the roadways, railways and waterways such that the freight time can be reduced. And my dear friends, time is money. If the freight time is reduced, the freight cost is reduced. Are you getting my point? Now the bulk carriage by the waterways is much significant than that of railways and roadways. So you can lower down the logistic cost by transferring the bulk commodities in the waterways, which are going to reduce the transportation and logistic cost. And this you can do by locating all the future industrial capacities near the coast. वहीं प्रोड्यूस किया और वहीं कंटेनर में डाल के बल्क में ट्रांसपोर्ट कर दिया. टाइम बचा, लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट बची और सिर्फ इंडस्ट्रियल कैपेसिटी बिल्ड करने का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर कॉस्ट आया. न रोड बनाने की जरूरत, न रेल बनाने की जरूरत, ना ही आपको वहां पे किसी भी प्रकार की लैंड एक्विजिशन की जरूरत. Are you getting my point? And not only that, you can reduce the logistic cost in all kind of trades by improving the export competitiveness by developing port proximate discrete manufacturing clusters. You must make manufacturing clusters in India very close to the ports. Why are you creating the special exclusive zones in hinterland of the country, interior areas of the country, special exclusive zones, or sorry, special economic zones, exclusive economic zones? They must be set up very close to the coast in India, so that use the port facility, minimize your dependence upon the road and railways. And my dear friends, you are going to reduce the logistic cost, transportation cost, and increase the efficiency, economy and effectiveness of India's export, import and domestic trade. This is the vision of Sagarmala project. And the last vision of the Sagarmala project is to infuse public private partnership wherever possible in case of India's port led development. This is the vision of the Sagarmala project. Is this clear to everyone? हाँ, जबजीत मैं मॉडल मिक्स एक बार फिर बता देता हूं. सपोज करो from Allahabad to Haldia you need to transport 1000 kilogram of steel. You are using road. At the same time, there is a navigable channel in Ganga that is available. If you make your Ganga between Allahabad and Haldia navigable, you can use ship, you can use bulk containers to carry large amount of freight with less fuel to be transferred from Allahabad to Haldia. Maybe from Haldia to Kolkata you may require railways which are better than roadways, and from Kolkata to some interior land you may use the roadways. So you see, you are building a very optimum mix of three different modes: waterways, railways and roadways. This is known as the optimization of the modal mix. Different modes of transportation are optimized such that transportation cost is reduced, time efficiency has come up, and the effectiveness of the trade has also increased, right? Harojit Khadam, PPP stands for Public Private Partnership. I hope it's clear to everyone the vision of the Sagarmala project. All right, let's proceed ahead. How is this program to be implemented? If we talk about the implementation of this program, there are two levels of implementation. The first level is the state level implementation and second is the union level implementation. If we talk about the implementation of the program, the state level implementation will be controlled by the state government, where the state government has to set up a state Sagarmala committee which will be headed by either the chief minister of that state or the minister in charge of the ports in that particular state. So for example, if there is Maharashtra, which is having two of the very important ports in the country, so Maharashtra is going to create a Maharashtra State Sagarmala Committee, and the head of that committee is going to be the Chief Minister of Maharashtra or the Minister in charge of ports in Maharashtra. They will look at the requirements of implementation of Sagarmala project at the level of the state. At the national level or the union level, the government has created a company, and that company is known as the Sagarmala Development Company. The Sagarmala Development Company intends to provide initial financial support to those companies who want to come and work in this sector by establishing a special purpose vehicle with such companies and providing them initial funding in return for an equity. Suppose करो कि मैं आकाश ट्रेड कंपनी खोल दूं, alright, let's say I have opened Akash Trade Company and my company want to make use of India's ports, and I want to develop India's ports so that my trade could be very streamlined. So what I'll do, I'll create a special purpose vehicle along with the Sagarmala Development Company. I need 200 crore rupees for this project. I have been able to raise 150 crores by myself, and last 50 crores I need, so this Sagarmala Development Company will provide me 50 crores additional in return for 20% of equity in my company. And this special purpose vehicle is going to provide financing to my brainchild of developing Akash Trading Company. इसी तरीके से बहुत सारी प्राइवेट कंपनीज को अट्रैक्ट करना चाहती है गवर्नमेंट एट द यूनियन लेवल बाय क्रिएटिंग द सागरमाला डेवलपमेंट कंपनी, वेयर द कंपनी इज गोइंग टू प्रोवाइड द इनिशियल फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट बाय गिविंग द मनी टू नो दोज कंपनीज with a minimal equity share in such companies. Such kind of mechanism is known as special purpose vehicle. So the Sagarmala project is implemented at both the level, the union level as well as the state level. Is it clear to all? ठीक है, फिर ये जो स्पेशल पर्पस व्हीकल को जो भी स्टेट में सर्विसेज चाहिए वो आपको ये कमिटी प्रोवाइड करेगी. एनी काइंड ऑफ services the special purpose vehicle will require in a particular state, utilizing that state's ports will be provided by the state Sagarmala committee. I hope it is clear to all. देखो ग्रीष्मिका, अगर आपने लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट खत्म कर दी या कम कर दी है एग्जिम और डोमेस्टिक ट्रेड की, देन ग्रीष्मिका इंडिया के ट्रेड की एफिशिएंसी बढ़ जाएगी. कम टाइम में इफेक्टिवली और सस्ते दाम पे आप इजीली ट्रेड करोगे सच दैट देयर विल बी नो लॉसेस. दिस इज द विजन ऑफ सागरमाला प्रोजेक्ट. ऑलराइट, चलिए लेट अस नाउ लुक इनटू द 4 पिलर्स ऑफ सागरमाला प्रोजेक्ट. Sagarmala project intend to provide India with port-led development. That means ports have to be developed first to become the agents of development of India as a country. So there are 4 different pillars that are there in case of Sagarmala. For example, the Sagarmala program intends to modernize the Indian ports. The Sagarmala project or program intends to connect all the important ports of the country together. Once you have modernized the ports, once you have connected all the ports together, it will result into creation of industrial projects near the ports. Not only that, you will create a development of the community in the region where such industries are being created. So the Sagarmala program intends to strengthen the country on 4 different pillars: modernize the ports, connect all the ports, develop industrial clusters near the ports, as well as improve the coastal communities' capacity by coastal community development. When you take care of these 4 dimensions, the ports are then ready, along with serving as the agent of development in India. How you are intending to go for port modernization? For port modernization, you are going to create new ports, you are going to increase their capacity, you are going to increase the efficiency of their operations by technological interventions. टेक्नोलॉजिकल इंटरवेंशन से आप नए पोर्ट्स बनाओगे, कैपेसिटी बढ़ाओगे एग्जिस्टिंग पोर्ट्स की, उसके साथ साथ नए पोर्ट्स और एग्जिस्टिंग पोर्ट्स की एफिशिएंसी, ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसी भी इंक्रीज करेंगे. हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू कनेक्ट द डिफरेंट पोर्ट्स? You are going to create the new roads and railways connecting all the ports together. Not only that, all the ports which are right now connected with the existing roadways and railways, you are going to upgrade that infrastructure to increase its capacity. You are going to connect the ports of the country by coastal shipping. India के coastline के साथ साथ आप waterway create करिए. You are going to link India's hinterland through inland water transport, and you are going to create logistic parks to increase the connectivity of all the ports together. हर पोर्ट के साथ एक लॉजिस्टिक पार्क होना चाहिए जहां पे आप माल को ढो सकते हो, माल को चढ़ा सकते हो. Alright, so they will be acting as the nodal points. So you are modernizing the ports, you are connecting all the ports together. Once you connect all the ports together and modernize the ports, next come the third pillar, that you must go for industrial development near such new existing efficient ports, and that you are going to do by setting up industrial clusters near the ports. You are going to create the coastal employment zones by promoting industries in such zones. You are going to create the maritime industrial clusters. You are going to create the smart industrial port cities, and you are going to create the port based special economic zones. You are going to promote the industrial development in the port area by extending special benefits to the companies that will come and set up their infrastructure and industries in the coastal areas near the ports. Then lastly, you have to also build the community's capacity in the coastal area, and that you are going to do by imparting the community that lives in the coastal area with skills. You are going to help them leverage the benefit of coastal tourism. You are going to help them develop their capacities in fishing by developing fishing harbors and fish processing industries in the coastal areas. People will be developed, cities will be developed, industries will be created, ports will be connected, and ports will be developed. This entire screen that you are seeing right now is the skeleton, heart and soul of the entire Sagarmala program. Is this clear to all? Is it clear? Right? Okay, great. Let us now look into the performance of the Sagarmala project so far. The intended number of projects in the Sagarmala program is approximately 802 projects that are to be completed by the year 2035, and these 802 projects are worth 5.48 lakh crore. That is, the Sagarmala project intends to create Yes, Japjit, I'll come to it. Hold on. So the performance so far is that the initial Sagarmala program intended to create 802 projects worth 5.48 lakh crore to be completed by 2035. So far, we have completed 194 projects worth 99,000 crores by the year 2021. Out of these 194 projects, 29 projects worth 45,000 crore rupees were completed under the PPP model. That is the reason, alright, because of this statistics, the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways has hailed Sagarmala project as success. Not only that, under the Sagarmala project, skill development centers have been created in the coastal region and the coastal cities, creating the capacity building among the coastal population to be transformed into the new industrial labor force. And for this, we have created under the Sagarmala project CEMS, that stands for Center of Excellence in Maritime and Shipbuilding. This Center of Excellence in Maritime and Shipbuilding is going to provide the requisite manpower for building port-led industrialization. The CEMS so far has trained more than 5,000 candidates in a matter of 7 years in 50 plus different courses since 2015. Not only that, under the Sagarmala project, the Ministry of Rural Development has merged together the Sagarmala program and the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalya Yojana, empowering the rural youth in the coastal areas with skill to be transformed into the industrial workforce when the industrial clusters are going to be set up along the port cities. Right? Is this clear? So this is the performance so far. Now the concluding remark about Sagarmala project is that Sagarmala project is very important because 95% of India's total merchandise trade by volume passes through the sea. Sea accounts for 95% of India's total merchandise trade, and therefore waterways are very important. Not only that, in India, 87% of India's freight after the ports is carried out by the roads and the railways, and therefore we need a very effective integration of the roads, railways and waterways for the optimum utilization and benefit that must come to India's economy. Is this clear? There is a statement missing here. The statement was supposed to be approximately 87% of India's freight. Let me write it down. Approximately 87% of India's freight is carried out using roads and railways. This demands a perfect mix of multi-modes of transport for Indian economic growth. For Indian economic growth. All right. So this is the entire discussion on the Sagarmala project. All right. All the nuances related to Sagarmala projects have been discussed in this particular topic. Japjit is asking, sir, could you link environmental impact and the future of this due to threat of rising sea level? Yes, Japjit, that is very much a big concern for the Sagarmala project, and it is estimated that by the end of the year 2020, by the end of the 21st centuries, we are going to see a sea level rise of 1 to 2 meters, which is going to be devastating for many of the port cities in India. So if you want to sustain the benefits that will come from the Sagarmala project, we have to create the resilient structures in the port areas. We have to go for building up those mechanisms through which we can prevent the inundation of the coastal areas, because there is going to be a sea level rise. All right, so yes, there is a significant future constraint upon the Sagarmala project, and that is the coastal inundation due to the global sea level rise in the wake of the global warming and climate change. And the solution to this is adaptation, mitigation, and funding to create the resilient structure in the coastal areas. Is it clear, everyone? All right, चलिए बहुत बढ़िया, ठीक है. So these were the 3 topics that we have discussed, in and out, everything related to these topics. The PDF of this lecture is there on our YouTube channel. Those of you, your Telegram channel. Those of you who are not there in our Telegram channel, it's advised that you join, search Raj Malhotra's IAS on Telegram and join, and you can download the PDF. All right. That's all from my side. Thank you. Have a great evening ahead. Have a great Sunday. See you next week on Saturday 2:30 p.m. However, from Monday to Friday, you know that there are weekly current affairs, subject wise classes, 2:30 p.m. Piyush sir on Monday is going to come and take polity and governance related current affairs. On Tuesday, Anurag sir is going to come and talk about the economy specific current affairs of this week. On Wednesday, either Reddy sir or Prahlad sir is going to come and take the current affairs related to science, technology and environment. On Thursday, Snigdha ma'am will be there taking up the current affairs related to international relations and historical events in news. On Friday next week, there will be Drishti ma'am taking up current affairs related to Indian society and internal security, and Saturday you may find me there. All right, that's all. Bye everyone, take care. Closing the session. Bye.